Stop right there. You who have stumbled across this video today, this was meant to happen. Today, I am sharing with you why mindset work is so important for every single person on this planet. Mindset work is something I am super passionate about, and today I just want to share with you some of the reasons why learning how to operate your own mind is so powerful. So even if you don't think that you're into personal development, even if you don't think you're into spirituality, you still need this stuff. So if you want to find out why mindset work is so important, then be sure to keep watching. What's up, beautiful soul, and welcome back. My name is Jen. I am a spiritual life and business coach. I am the best-selling author of The Mindful Witch, and I am the CEO of The Aligned Life. And every single week, I bring you a brand new training here on my YouTube channel, which is designed to help you align yourself with your goals and intentions. Basically, I am here to teach you how to manifest your best life by using your brain. And if that sounds like something you are interested in, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Today, we are talking all about the power of mindset. And today, I just really wanted to talk about mindset work itself and why mindset is so important. No matter if you're into manifesting, no matter if you're into spirituality, no matter if you think that all of this stuff doesn't really matter, I'm really hoping this video today is going to change your mind. So if you have been here for a while, or if you stumbled across my blog, you probably know that I am always talking about the power that we all have to change our circumstances based on our brains. Basically, the way you think and the way you feel determines your actions, and your actions determine your results. So if there is anything in your life that you want to change, it is crucial for you to figure out how to make your brain work for it before you actually do the real life stuff that is involved. The other side of that is that if your brain isn't on board, if your subconscious mind isn't on board with where you are going, you are going to secretly sabotage. You are going to get in your way. You are going to fall into traps like limiting beliefs and fears that will hold you back from what you want. So mindset work is an important tool itself just to create the life that you want. And I'm talking about this all the time, but there really is more to this story. And again, that is why I'm making this video today. I am such a passionate believer in the power of using our thoughts and our beliefs in a way that is beneficial for us, because there are so many times in our life that our thoughts are actually working against us. So this isn't to say that we could ever become superhuman and evolve past this stuff, but the more that you understand it and the more that you can start to see these patterns in the world around you, the more control you are going to have over your own life. And of course, in the end, if you can get out of your own way and save your precious time and your precious energy for the things that you want and spend less time on the mental chaos and mind drama, you are going to create way more of the results that you want in your life. So with that all being said, let's get into the reasons why mindset work is so important for everyone. The first thing that I wanted to bring up today is the very fact that humans are primarily run by emotion. We all like to think that we are very logical creatures and that we make decisions based on rational thoughts and ideas. But that isn't actually the case. We are actually still largely motivated by our feelings. And how that really works is we're motivated to go towards things that feel good and away from things that feel bad. When you make a decision, for example, like you get on Amazon and you make a flash decision that you are going to buy this thing that you didn't have any intention of buying earlier that day, when you see this thing and you're like, oh, that is what I need, that is your emotions talking. That isn't your logical brain talking. So what happens is your emotions, your gut, your feelings resonate with this thing. There's something there that is drawing you into it. There's a story or there's an idea there that you want to have, you want to inhabit. And then your logical mind comes into play. Your logical mind is the reason why we tell ourselves certain things like, oh, if I buy these shoes, like I really need a new pair of shoes because these other shoes are not in style anymore, whatever the logic is that you have for your purchase. We think that we're buying based on that logic, but we're not. We're actually buying things and making all kinds of decisions day in and day out based on our emotions. Thing is, if you don't know how to run your emotions, if you don't know how your emotions work, most of us live most of our life in a reactive state. So something quote unquote bad happens and we think we have to feel badly about it. And sometimes we even take that bad feeling energy and put it onto someone else. We take out our emotions from here, we put them over here. And that just really means that we are not fully in control. We are living in reaction mode. We are not being conscious of what we're doing. And the things that we are doing are not really in alignment with who we want to be and the life we want to have. If you don't know how to manage your emotions, you are going to, at some point in your life, be like a little ping pong ball. You are going to ricochet off of event to event to event. You are always going to feel like you are out of control, when the reality is that we can actually change our own emotions. Again, this is why I think this stuff is so important to talk about. Certainly no one ever taught this to me as a child. This is stuff I have learned fairly recently in life. And even more than that, I was a psychology major. I went through 4 years of psychology schooling at university, and I still didn't learn this stuff. So now that we know that we are primarily motivated by motivation, we know that we are primarily motivated to move towards the things that feel good and away from the things that feel bad, the other thing we have to know and understand is that our emotions are created by our thoughts. So what actually happens is something bad happens to us in the world and we go into reaction mode. We get angry, we get upset, maybe we say something we didn't really mean, and we feel like we had to do that because this thing happened to us. This driver cut us off in traffic, or this friend forgot to call me back, and I have to act a certain way because that thing made me feel this emotion. But what is really happening is that if you slow everything down and look at it underneath the surface, we are creating a story. We are always creating stories. Our brain does not like to have anything that it doesn't understand, so it will rush to create meaning and to create story about things that we really have no idea about. For example, if your friend was supposed to call you back and they didn't, your brain is going to rush in with a very helpful story like, this friend doesn't respect me, I can't believe that they're doing this to me again, etc., etc., etc. The cold fact of the situation is just that your friend forgot to return your call. And all the other stuff that we create on top of that, that is generated by us. It isn't actually provable in the real world, and most of the time we are not getting it right. But that is where our emotions are coming from. You are not actually getting emotional because your friend forgot to call you back. You are getting emotional because you think your friend calling you back means that they don't respect you, or that they always forget about you, or that you're just not as good friends as you thought you were. That is where the emotions come from. So it is important to understand, again, that we are highly emotional creatures. We are run by our emotions, but our emotions are created by us. If you don't understand this, again, you're going to go through life feeling like that ping pong ball, feeling constantly out of control, constantly feeling like you are reacting to everything, and you are never going to feel in control of your own world. So mindset work is important because it helps us to control our own world. Like, I can still never control when somebody is going to call me back or not. I can't control who is going to cut me off in traffic or what other events are happening in my world, but I can always tell myself a new story. And sometimes it takes a little while to get that new story going in my mind, but I have the power to write it. I have the power to change. I have the power to create my emotional state. And that is a superpower I think everybody should have. That brings me to point number 2 that I wanted to make today. So we have established that humans are highly emotional creatures and that we largely are motivated by our own emotions. The thing is, this is not a secret, and so many industries in this world are already one step ahead of us. They know that humans can be manipulated by our emotional state. And in fact, we are being manipulated through our emotions every single day. So there's 2 emotions that are really effective at getting us to do certain things. But the thing is, if you don't understand, again, the mechanisms, if you don't understand how easily manipulated we can be, you are going to fall into these traps. You are going to get manipulated by somebody that wants you to take an action on their behalf, and you aren't even going to realize what is happening. So I feel that this work is so important, especially we have just seen this whole QAnon phenomenon happen where a bunch of people got manipulated into thinking that they were part of this great movement that obviously was not true and has never been true. But the reasons why that is so easy to happen is because their emotions were being manipulated. They were being fed all this stuff thinking that they were part of some sort of secret resistance, but really they were just being motivated by somebody with a big political ambitions. So it is really important to understand, again, how this happens, and especially to look for these 2 hot button issues as you go through the world around you. So again, those 2 things to look for are fear and shame. So first, actually, I want to talk about shame, because shame is something that we all are manipulated by day in and day out. And actually, the world of modern advertising is largely based on shame. So I know when you turn on the TV and you see all these ads about, tea that'll make you skinny or whatever, I guess that's more Instagram, but you are being shown these things over and over and over again to the point you don't even really register what is happening. But basically, a lot, I would say the majority of modern advertising is based on this idea. It is based on the idea that you are almost good enough. You are almost perfectly lovable. You are almost a worthy human being. And this is why it's tricky, because it is telling you you are almost there. So that kind of, in a way, feels good. But what it is ultimately saying, what most ads are saying is, oh, but you would be better, more lovable, more worthy, more acceptable if you dyed your hair with this brand, or if you used this medication, or if you bought this car, or if you bought this pair of shoes. That is how advertising works. It is making us feel that there is something fundamentally wrong with us, but we can fix it. We can go spend our money on something that will help us fit in. And fitting in is the opposite in some ways of shame. Shame is where we feel like we are rejected and like nobody can love us. And it is the lowest vibration feeling that humans can experience. We all want to avoid shame. We never want to feel shame. You might not feel shame by watching a commercial once, by watching a TV show once, but you have to remember that TV especially is incredibly hypnotic. TV is super hypnotic. And when you see these ads coming up over and over and over again, even if you think that you are not invested in them, there is something happening in your brain. And the more you see something, the more likely it is going into your subconscious mind. And the more that your subconscious mind believes that I might be actually worthy of love and acceptance by the world around me if I only, buy this thing or do this thing, that is when you are going to become susceptible to that marketing. So I don't want to talk about marketing in a way that every single marketer is evil and every single person that is selling you something is evil. I don't believe that, and I do believe that there are things that we need to purchase that will make us feel better and that will help us improve our quality of life. But what modern marketing really is a sort of emotional warfare. It is putting us at war with ourselves. And by the time you have reached this video today, you have amassed years of having this imprinted in your mind. You have watched thousands and thousands of commercials. You have had this message repeated to you over and over and over again. And even if not every commercial is successful at turning you into a customer, that overall message of us being not quite good enough is hard to get out of. And it is especially hard to get past if you don't understand this mindset work. So am I saying mindset work is going to make you completely secure, happy, confident, and impermeable to marketing for the rest of your life? Probably not, but it is going to make a big difference. And actually, I really believe this message of constantly being told that we should feel shame is so damaging. And again, I really think this is sort of mental warfare that very few of us have any idea about. So shame is the number one thing for you to look out for. But very closely related to shame is fear. And fear is also used to control us by the media. So advertising can use fear sometimes, but I'm going to talk more about fear being used in regards to politics and the news in general. But fear is one of our biggest hot button emotions. And when we feel fear, we want to protect ourselves. And actually, in the way that modern news is created, this is exactly what it is preying on. So when you feel fear, for example, last spring when Corona was first coming out, this personally happened to me, and I think it personally happened to a bunch of people. The news about this virus was coming out. The news about things closing down was coming out, and we all felt terrified at first. At least I did. So what happens when my brain feels terrified? I want to start to feel secure again somehow. How do I feel secure? Well, my brain thinks that going out and getting more information is going to help me feel secure. So at that moment in time, I was constantly reading the news. I was constantly looking for new updates. I was constantly trying to figure out, what this whole situation, what the impact would be on me, on my health, on my life. And there was no shortage of stuff to read, of videos to watch. There was absolutely no shortage of information, all of which made me feel even more afraid. So like I said, in the advertising industry, I don't think necessarily all advertisers are bad. I don't think all marketing is a bad thing. I also don't think all news is a bad thing. Of course, it's important to stay informed. Of course, it's important to understand what is happening in the world. But this fear complex has been manipulated. It has been used against us. It has created more and more viewers and consumers of the news. Like news companies, maybe not the person at the desk or the person writing the story, but news media in general understands this, understands that we all have this fear hot button. And it understands that it can keep writing new stuff, putting out news stories, telling us stuff that sounds scary. And the scarier the headline, the more clicks it's going to get. So we are being manipulated into feeling fear, not because there is necessarily more danger in the world, but because people are reading and consuming more news. The fact that I always like to bring up to people is that our modern society, the modern world, is so much safer now on this present day than it was in, say, the early 80s. Like in the United States, for example, violent crime rates have dropped significantly. So, I grew up in Canada, but when I was a small child, I used to, for example, walk to school by myself, and that was like a very kind of normal thing. But in this modern day and age, it is kind of assumed that kids are going to be picked up and taken to school by a parent or a guardian, that they can't wander around by themselves. And that thinking comes with this belief that it is more dangerous out there. I would never let my kid wander around by themselves because who knows what might happen. And of course, that's not to say that these things don't periodically happen. They do, but statistically, they happen less now than they used to happen. But we have more fear around it now, and we have changed our behavior. And I really believe that that is because of the news, because we have more access to looking at that stuff. We have more access to this fear-based stuff. Not to say that not all of it, that some of it isn't true, but we are being put in that state for somebody's gain, for the gain of the advertisers and the news networks. So again, if you don't understand how fear can be used to control you by the media, or by politicians. Politicians also use this largely. We just saw this in the US election cycle. Most, I should say, politicians use fear as a tactic for you to vote for them. They're going to tell you that the other person is going to burn your house down or do something really horrible. And that's not because that person is going to do that. That is because they want you to vote for them. And if they can get you to become afraid of that other person, you are going to vote for them. So it is important to understand how fear works, how susceptible we are to fear, and also to understand that we can be so easily manipulated by this. And like I said, I think there is warfare, emotional warfare happening in advertising. I think there's emotional warfare happening in news, media, in politics, in all kinds of places. If we collectively want to get out of the cycle, if we want to take control back of our minds and our emotional space, we need to understand how our brain works and how we are being manipulated. We can only get out of this toxic cycle if we can come back and start to trust ourselves and to understand what we need to think in order to feel good, in order to opt out. You do not have to watch the news 24/7 in order to be informed and in order to keep yourself safe. And if you feel like that is happening to you, you have been manipulated. So just to recap there, we know humans are motivated by emotion, and now we know that we can be manipulated and controlled by our emotions. So even if you don't want to go through this whole mindset work journey with me, I really want you to start to notice in your own world when you are watching TV, when you are looking at social media, when you're taking in the news, when are you feeling sort of a sense of shame? When are you being fed a feeling of fear? When are you being told to be afraid of something? And if you are being made to feel shameful or made to feel afraid of something, I want you just to start asking, like, who could benefit from me feeling this? And if I take this action that I'm supposed to take, like, who could be behind that? Because when you can start to see through that, you can start to understand how big the consequences are of this stuff. Okay, and that brings me to the last point that I wanted to make today about why mindset work is important for everybody. And I already touched on this point, but this is a really good place to bring it back. So I just kind of talked about these big out there concepts and about how these things can be affecting you in your life. But I want to bring it back to you and your life and your manifestation desires, your dreams, your goals. So if you are not in control of your emotions, and again, if you're the emotional ping pong ball reacting to the things that are happening in your life, you are going to feel fear when something bad happens. You're going to feel fear when you watch the news. You're going to, your emotions are going to be going in all these places. And ultimately, where your emotions go, your actions follow. Your time follows, your energy follows. So I just want you to stop here and take a moment and just consider what your life might look like if you were taking all that time, all that energy, all that attention away from the things that aren't important to you and put them back on the table for the things that are important to you. So we can all get wrapped up in what I call mental chaos and mind drama, which is, your brain obsessing about something, worrying about all the worst possible scenarios, catastrophizing, going into that anxious mode or that fear mode. That is not useful energy. Your brain thinks it's useful energy. Your brain thinks worrying about all the potential possibilities in the world is actually a useful thing to do. But it actually isn't. You can sit on your sofa all day long and think of all kinds of things to worry about. But when it comes to real life, you are not going to be any more prepared. There's a big difference between you thinking about something and actually doing that. And the same thing applies to what we worry about. We think we can worry ourselves into feeling confident and capable, but what we really do is just erode our own happiness in the moment, and we don't even make any headway towards what we think we're doing. We don't become any more prepared for these terrible outcomes we're thinking about. Reality is always going to be different. So the example I like to give about this is if you read a book on how to drive a car, would you actually know how to drive a car? Of course, the answer is no. And it is the same thing when it comes to your worrying. worrying about something doesn't mean you're any more prepared to handle that scenario. In real life, you are going to have to go through and do it for yourself, and that is a completely different thing than just thinking about it. So, what would your life be like if you were obsessing about the things you want? What would your life be like if, when something bad happened, you didn't take it with you and you definitely didn't project it out onto something or someone else? What would it be like to understand when your emotions are being used against you and to be able to opt out of that experience? I want you to take emotional sovereignty back. I want you to understand that we have so much control over our feelings, over the perceptions we have of this reality. And in fact, having that control is how we start to create more of the things that we want in life. Of course, we can never control everything. I can't control personally when COVID is going to end. I can't control the weather. I can't control what other people do or say, but I can control my energy, my attention, my time, and learning thought work and learning emotional management and learning how to manifest in the way that I teach it. This is how you get control back. This is how you take your life and your dreams seriously instead of getting pulled in a million directions that are not leading you where you want to go. So that is it for today's training. I hope that you enjoyed this. As I always say, there are no coincidences. If you came across this video today, there was something important in it for you to take with you and apply in your own life. So if you enjoyed this, I would love it if you would leave me a comment below or go ahead and give me a thumbs up on the video. I would so appreciate your support here. If you want to learn more about me and my work, you can come over to the site. I'll leave a link for that in the description box below. I also have a free manifestation planner for you to download over there, so be sure to go and pick that up. And other than that, I'm wishing you so much love and so much joy on this beautiful journey of ours, and I will see you back here in the next training.